All right, let's get it on, everybody. Welcome to a special edition of The Sweat presented by DraftKings. I am Emerson Lotzia. Welcome to my living room. The total number of appearances for my dogs has been set at 2.5 on the DK Sportsbook. We're going to dive into today's slates around Major League Baseball. We got some NBA playoffs. We got some NHL playoffs to discuss. But we're going to get this party started with a couple golf gurus here. We have DraftKings contributor Jeff Ulrich in the house, as well as Jason Sobel from the Action Network. Before, though, gentlemen, we get to your best bets for this week's Wells Fargo Championship. Jason, John Rahm was a huge favorite last week, went wire to wire in Mexico. Kind of a similar situation, too, when you look at the odds this week with Rory Mcilroy so heavily favored. So how does last week maybe factor into what you decide to do this week?
Yeah, so Emerson, for those people out there who are watching who don't necessarily bet on golf, I can tell you it's just this easy. The best player in the field has the shortest odds, but he goes out there and leads after every round and he wins. Then you collect your money on Sunday evening. It's super easy to bet on golf. Yeah, I mean, John Rahm, easiest call of the year, I guess, even though he's a super short number. But no, I don't necessarily see the same value in Rory Mcilroy this week, even though he's coming off that 64 in the final round of the Masters. That was his last competitive round just about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And so he's played well in the DC area, maybe some vibes from his first career major championship title in 2011 at the US Open at Congressional. So that helps a little bit as well. But I don't see the same value in Rory this week that we saw in Rahm last week.
Yeah, and Jeff, like Rory's past success here has come at Quail Hollow. We talked about it yesterday on the show. This is a whole new golf course. Where they at? TPC Potomac. And then you also mentioned yesterday that you maybe like a wire-to-wire bet plus 1,200 for the winner.
Well, I mean, I think if you're interested, like, again, it kind of comes down to which side you're on. I mean, I kind of agree with Jason. Like, we were kind of due for maybe a John Rahm blow win. It just happened to happen when he was at plus 350, which really, sucked because it's almost unbettable at that number. But, Rory is not really a player I necessarily think that is going to dominate to the same extent. He hasn't played in like 4 weeks. He really, outside of that one Masters runner-up finish, which he needed to chip in at the last hole to get, he hasn't been in as dominant form. So, yeah, if you're looking at Rory, like the wire-to-wire winner bet is something you could think about for sure. If you're looking for a repeat, it's plus 1,200. At least you're getting better odds than plus 850. But for this event, I also think that the course is going to have a little bit more to say too. It's a little bit of a quirkier course. It's tougher in a lot of ways. And I think that will just bring more people in and make it less likely that we're going to see a wire-to-wire kind of thing.
Yeah, next closest guy here, Jason, as we're looking at the odds on the screen, I mean, Corey Connors, plus 1,600. He's been a busy dude this season. Tyrell Hatton, Fitzpatrick, Henley, Leishman, all plus 2,000. Who stands out to you in this group? Is there one dude who's a better bet than the others?
I love everything about Corey Connors this week, except for that short price, man. I was hoping for something in the low 20s, maybe even mid 20s this week. And instead we get 1,600 plus 1,600 on Corey Connors, who still only won once on the PGA Tour. That happened a few years ago at the Valero Texas Open. And yet this setup should be perfect for him. I've heard that it may play like a US Open light. I don't mean that it's necessarily going to be that brutally difficult, but it's not about hitting 320-yard drives. This is about keeping in the fairway, and then it's a second shot golf course. I know some people might look at the yardage, 7,160 yards, and say, oh, it's a short course, so you don't need to bomb it out. It's not necessarily that. There are a lot of long par fours. Even the 2 par fives on this golf course, the par 70, play longer. And so you're going to see players with a lot of mid to long irons into these greens. That's Corey Connors' specialty. One of the more underrated ball strikers in the world. I think he's at least top 10, maybe top 5 with those irons, except apparently he's not underrated as far as the traders at DraftKings go, because 16-1, boy, again, I love everything about him, but that number is just so short.
Yeah. Jeff followed up a T6 at the Masters, though, with the 12th place finish at the RBC Heritage.
Yeah, I mean, it's potential that, we just get Corey Connors coming in and just striping the ball all week and maybe takes this thing. But I think the main theme with the guys at plus 2,000 and under is that I would just rather avoid them and bet the guys at plus 2,500 or bigger. I just don't think there's a big difference. You're talking about guys like Gary Woodland and Paul Casey at plus 3,500 versus this group at plus 2,000. The most prolific winner of the guys at plus 2,000 is Leishman, but Leishman's also been in the worst form of them. So, you look at them, like if Henley was at plus 3,000 or better, I'd like him. If Connors was a little bit bigger, I'd like him too. But, otherwise it's kind of just a group that I want to stay away from. As Jason said, the traders at DraftKings this week just seem to say we're not getting beat by this group of people. So they kind of put them at shorter odds. I like the setup for Henley. I like the setup for Connors because those guys can really get hot with their mid irons and long irons, but I just don't think that the number's quite big enough to bet them on the outright.
All right. So Jeff, hook me up with someone then you're confident fading this week, who maybe the public could be on.
Yeah. I mean, as far as like a straight up fade, I mean, I'm fine fading Patrick Reed. I know the number is still big. But I just feel like, the ball striking with him isn't quite there. And it's not even so much a knock against Reed. I just look at the odds down there. And I think, Gary Woodland at plus 3,500 is a guy I'm really big into, especially if you can get that number. You could even go down to like a Keegan Bradley, but I think Reed is someone I'm fine fading for one more week here. He's starting to put it together, but I just think that with this, the way this course is going to play and just with the emphasis on iron play, I'm just not sure if Reed is quite striking it well enough to grab a win.
Yeah, Jason, is there someone that you think people should proceed with caution here when it comes to betting them?
Yeah, I'm guessing this is a universal fade, Emerson, but Paul Casey is just too dangerous right now. His last two starts, he went to the match play. He teed off in the first match, then said, no, I can't do it. My back's hurting, and eventually wound up withdrawing from the event. Masters, same thing. He played in the par 3, I think, the par 3 contest the day before. He was ready. He was there. He was available. And then after lineups locked, by the way, for DFS, he decided, you know what, I'm just not healthy enough to give it a go. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. Fool me a third time. I don't know. Look, unless you're just trying to be completely contrarian, Paul Casey is a red light for me this week. And then I look at plus 5,000, 50 to 1. Jason Day and Webb Simpson are essentially two trains heading in opposite directions. Webb Simpson has not had the best start to his year so far, but he was injured. He told me a couple of weeks ago he's healthy now. He can start preparing and practicing for events the way he needs to. Jason Day, I mean, until we can figure out what exactly is going on with Jason right now, he's a fade for me for the long term until we start seeing some better results.
All right, this also feels like, Jason, like one of those weeks, again, similar to last week where Jeff, we talked about it, long shots were like kind of the guys to target. So which ones are on your radar this week?
Okay, so two things. I've already gotten on the DraftKings traders, and I know they're going to be mad at me already for bashing the Corey Connors price. I'm going to get on them twice more right here. One of my favorite long shots coming into this week, did my research Sunday night, started looking, okay, he's won in the DC area before back in 2015. When this event, or not this event, but when the Quicken Loans previous event was held at TPC Potomac 4 years ago, finished in 17th place, last two starts, a 4th place, a 12th place. I love Troy Merritt. And then the numbers came out on Troy Merritt. He's at 35 to 1. He's the same number as Sergio Garcia, as Gary Woodland, as Abraham Ancer. What? Come on. Are they? I don't like the fact that the traders are in my brain, but I've got one on them, Emerson. My favorite long shot this week, I'm telling you, he's very, very long. He's so long, he's not even listed in the DK Sportsbook right now. Maybe that'll change, but Eugenio Lopez Shakara. He is the 4th ranked amateur in the entire world amateur golf ranking. Plays at Oklahoma State, just announced he's going to return next year for a 5th year. He was already 3rd on the PGA Tour U standings. If he had decided to come out of school, he'd get his Korn Ferry card right away. I've been told he's one of the best ball strikers around with a tour-ready game, all ready to go. Some other book out there, and I'm not looking around. I don't have an eye that I'm looking, but somewhere else I saw him at 650 to 1 this week. I don't think he's going to win, but top 10s, top 20s, love it.
Okay. Wow. Jeff Ulrich. That's a very Jeff Ulrich selection there by Sobel.
Well, yes, but no, I like that. Hey, maybe we should email the DraftKings Sportsbook after and see if we can get some odds up on them. Okay. But yeah, Troy Merritt at plus 3,500. That's obviously, it's just a ridiculous price. Been playing good, but when guys are priced down like that, tends to be just a good stay off. I'll go a little bit more mid-range because since Jason has gone like top and then bottom, I'll try and sandwich in between here. A couple guys in the 1,000 or the 10,000 range here. I mean, Brandon Wu, I think, is a great young player that is doing things the right way, and by right way I just mean he's hitting the ball really well. He's getting a lot of top results. through his ball striking. He's over 10 strokes tee to green last week. And then David Lipsky at plus 10,000 as well. You look at the winners of this event at TPC Potomac, Molinari, Kyle Stanley, they're really not big hitters, but they're guys who are just hitting their irons really well. Lipsky led the field in strokes gained approach last week. This guy was really good on the Korn Ferry Tour last year. He's won on the European Tour as well. He's 33. He's American. He's used to playing here. Like, I think David Lipsky's a guy who's going to win at some point. And I'm thinking the setup was just the way he's playing may actually be better for him. And then one other player I'll throw out, a guy I always like to bet on, Doc Redman. Game's starting to come around a little bit. The approach game is there, plus 15,000. I love the top 10 on Redman this week at plus 11,000 or plus 1,100 there, excuse me. Definitely one of my favorite players to chase down in the odds.
Jeff, you're a Redmond guy too. I thought I was the only guy on the Good Doctor every week. No. I'm glad to see where
he sucked me in with all those big results early in his career. So I mean, I'm staying on it, but it's good odds. It's a good setup. He shot 64 here in 2018, the final round too. So.
And Lipsky gained the most strokes in the field with the approach game last week in Mexico. So that's a good. Yeah, that's a good pick there, Jeff. Jason, before you skedaddle, dude, hook me up with your pick to win the Wells Fargo Championship this week.
Yeah, I mentioned it earlier. I mean, if it's just one pick to win, I get it. The odds are short, but Corey Connors just primed to go out there and win. He's essentially too good. I'm looking for that oxymoronic term we always talk about, positive regression. I'm looking for Corey Connors to finally get that second PGA Tour win that, quite frankly, he deserves because he's good enough to be a top 20 golfer in the world. I think he'll get close if he wins this week. And so, again, I hate the number, but I love the player this week. And so if it's just one guy to win, I'm going Corey Connors. Then I'll sprinkle some other outrights in the 80 to 100 to 1 range, just offsetting him a little bit.
All right, Jeff, can't sleep on your fellow Canadian there.
No, but I am. I'm going to go Gary Woodland. look at those units. But I'm going to go, I love the odds on Gary Woodland this week. Plus 3,500. He's plus 2,200 last week. The approach game is clicking. He's been really consistent with that. T22 last week, that's fine. I think the tougher course will help Gary Woodland this week too. Obviously a US Open winner. So really like that number we're getting on Woodland.
All right. Awesome. Jason, good times hanging with you, man. Always enjoy having you on the show live. Jeff, hang out because after this break, we got to dive into what we saw last night around the NHL and then the 4-game slate that arrives this evening. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to an at-home edition of The Sweat today. So Jeff Ulrich is here. Just got done talking some golf with Jason Sobel. So if you missed that, go ahead and rewind this, whether you're on YouTube, Twitch, or Twitter. Check that out. We were talking Wells Fargo Championship. But let's go ahead and let's transition to the NHL. We got 4 more playoff games tonight here, Jeff. Last night was interesting because we saw 3 blowouts. You had to stay up late if you really wanted to catch the close one. I don't know. Did we completely oversell the excitement of the first round of the playoffs here?
Well, it was exciting if your team won in the blowout. Like if you're a Blues fan or a Leafs fan. Leafs fans thought it was a great night.
That was crazy, by the way. Just destroying the Lightning 5-0.
You know, it's funny because I talked about that game with Glash on the slate yesterday, and I said I like the Lightning, but I'm really cautious about betting them tonight. And I actually kind of like the Leafs to win Game 1, and it went exactly as I thought it would for once, because the Leafs did come out and just got that boost from the crowd. Now that being said, I also said if the Lightning lose Game 1, don't be afraid to get on them in the series total, and I'll stick to that because I do think that the Lightning eventually break through there. But it it was definitely an interesting way to start. Obviously, the only close game was the last one, like you said, out in Edmonton. Kings are going to be scrappy, and the Oilers, the Oilers played like they did in the middle of the year, where basically their defense just kind of just gave up, and their goalie sucked, and they just tried to win by letting Connor McDavid run through the team and Leon Draisaitl, and it almost worked. But we'll see if that continues. If the Oilers can pick it up again, I still like them long term on the series line as well.
Yeah, so Leafs smoked the Lightning 5-0. Hurricanes did their thing, little late rally starting at the end of the second period against the Bruins, and then we know the Blues humbling the Wild 4-0. Out of the 3 teams that you got destroyed last night, which one do you like to win Game 2?
Yeah, it's. I think you got to go with. I'm like, in terms of betting, I think the best odds you're going to get are Tampa Bay, because they're going to be on the road. But obviously it's a veteran team, and I don't think they're going to be rattled by what happened at all. They're just going to say, okay, that's fine. Toronto got theirs. We'll come back and we'll get ours. But like in terms of teams I'd be most confident about winning, it's probably the Oilers. They were, like I said, I think they played about as bad as they could, and they still like almost won that game. I think that long term the Kings are scrappy, but like the Oilers power play and just even their improved 5-on-5 play, I think we'll win out there with their speed. So it's an interesting one, but I'm kind of confident that you'll see both teams bounce back. I think for betting wise, you're gonna get better odds on the Lightning for sure, though.
All right, so 4 puck drops on 4 more series tonight. Let's start with the Penguins and the Rangers. I think the Rangers went 3-1 against the Penguins in the regular season. So New York favored at -135 on the DK Sportsbook here on the money line, as you can see on your screen. Which side do you like to take Game 1 at MSG? You want it back to heavy favorites?
So, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't call like the Rangers heavy favorites, but I think if you look at this series, like, the Rangers have been really good against the Penguins lately too. They're 6-1 against the spread when playing against Pittsburgh at home in the last 7 home meetings against the Penguins. So that's good. You've got Casey DeSmith starting in net for Pittsburgh, which it's just such a mismatch. I mean, Igor Shesterkin, .940 save percentage at home this year. Like Pittsburgh, I like their team. I like the way they're set up, like the depth that they've added at forward. But to beat Igor Shesterkin like 4 times in a game, it's just too much. Like, because Casey DeSmith, I just don't think he's going to give the Penguins the goaltending that they need. Like, you're going to need DeSmith to out duel Shesterkin in probably 1 or 2 of the games. That is a big ask, man. So I know that, like, plus 115, I just don't think it's long enough to back the Penguins. I actually like backing the Rangers tonight. -135 is fine. If it got any shorter, I'd probably just stay off. But I think that Pittsburgh is a little bit of a public team in the sense they've got guys like, Crosby still on there, and they've got a lot of glare just from winning the cups before. And I think they get bet a little bit. And I think plus 115 is actually, it's a little bit shorter than it should be. Like, I think the Penguins should have longer odds here. They're going up against the best goalie in the league at home, where he's just been dominant. So Rangers, Pittsburgh, a really good team, 5-on-5. I know the Rangers do have like some weaker metrics, but I think that Shesterkin I think he'll win them this series.
Yeah, it seems like just such a big edge in the crease with that team. And then Jerry's going to be out at least like 2 games, right, with the broken foot.
Yeah, I think at least 2 games. Absolutely.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm
I
just
think
not confident, again, in Casey DeSmith, really. He's improved a little bit as the year went on, but yeah.
All right, the East number 1 seed. We got the Panthers here, man. They're kicking things off against Ovi and the wild card Capitals. Let's see, Panthers minus 255 now, favorites, plus the game total in this one, 6.5. So what's your favorite bet in this game?
So I don't mind taking a shot with the Capitals here tonight. Like, I do think that we're getting some really big numbers on underdogs. And I think that, like, you can look at these last 3 games and you should be, like, if you take 2 underdogs from these last 3 games, you're going to get 2 teams at plus 200 odds or better. And I mean, you just really just need to win one of those bets to be profitable. And I think that the Capitals are very live here. You look at what the Capitals have done. I know they didn't finish the season strong. Their goaltending also has issues, but we're just talking about one game here. And the total's gone over in each of the last 5 games that Washington and Florida has played. So if you want to just bet the over at 6.52, I don't hate that. I think if I was going to bet an over, what I would do is bet the over on the Capitals team total. And I'll bring that up in a second. But I really don't mind betting the Capitals as underdogs. They're 6-1 against the spread in the last 7 times when they've played Florida in Florida. And Florida has been a dominant home team. We know that. But we see this all the time in the playoffs too, in the hockey playoffs in general. We get these big regular season favorites. These guys are just flow through the regular season. They put up monster numbers. We've seen it before with teams like Detroit in the past, Tampa before they won the Stanley Cup, and they just struggle in the first round. It's like the weight of expectations gets so big with these teams. And you've got a team like the Capitals with a guy like Alex Ovechkin, like a playoff hardened team. They're just not going to be scared of the Panthers in this spot. They're just not. And I know all the metrics say, Washington hasn't really played that well, but I think this is too big a number to give the Capitals in the first game. I'd be fine taking them as an underdog spot. Like I said, I don't mind the team total here either. Like, these teams have really scored when they've met up. You look at, I think it's under team props. Yeah. Team total goals, getting minus 110 on the Capitals to go over 2.5 goals. I'd be all about that tonight. I think that even if Florida wins, you could see like a 6-4 game or something. Maybe they get behind like a couple goals early and they just rally. So I think probably my favorite bet is to go over 2.5, just straight up one bet from this game. But like I said, if you're playing the underdogs tonight, I think you include the Capitals as one of your bets, and then you can look to add another one because you win one of those bets again at plus 250, you're in the profits. So the Capitals tonight, like the over for sure.
Yeah, and hockey is different than from other sports, especially when it comes to the playoffs, where a hot goalie can send a number 1 team home early.
Yeah. And Samsonov, I mean, again, like he's not great. I mean, I just finished bashing, Casey DeSmith. Samsonov is no better, but Samsonov is interesting because he has shown been really hot in spurts. And again, I'm not necessarily going to take the Capitals on the series line. It's really tempting, but I do like the odds we're getting here for game 1. Like they're just too big to pass up for me with Ovechkin. And just, again, I go back to the Capitals record against the Panthers. And on the road, like, it's been good. So Washington, I don't think is going to be scared of this situation at all.
All right. I think it's safe to say Colorado is a heavy favorite here. Minus 330, goal total 6.5. Like, do they make it easy? Do they make it easy in game 1?
I think they do. This is the exact opposite of the Florida Capitals game. I think this line is actually not big enough. David Rittich is starting Rittich. I can't remember how you pronounce it. I think it's whatever. Whatever
Rittich the right way is, you're not going to do
David Rittich, yeah, whatever is right. I'm going to say the opposite. David Rittich is starting in net for the Predators. If this was Saros and we were getting plus 260, I would probably say, you could think about taking the Preds, but this number isn't big enough, man. I got the puck line up there. I like the Colorado Avalanche for the puck line, minus 130. This is a team that, they've had their ups and downs in the regular season, but they dominated when they needed to. They got the number 1 seed again. Maybe it wasn't always pretty, and Darcy Kemper, people have their opinions on him, but this team has been waiting since last year when they got knocked out. They have been absolutely they've just been, in my opinion, they're almost just been going through the motions. I think they're going to absolutely annihilate the Predators tonight. And at the very least, I'm definitely confident enough to take them at minus 1.5 on the puck line. I'm actually surprised that this number isn't bigger. And I think the only reason this number isn't shorter, like you were not getting like minus 400 on the Avalanche, is that the Predators just beat the Avalanche in the regular season like 2 games ago. But you got to remember, like the Predators were playing to get in the playoffs at that point, and the Colorado Avalanche were playing for nothing. So it's not really a game that I put a lot of stock in. And we also have no Saros. So I think taking the Avalanche here, minus 1.5 at minus 130. I know those look like short odds, but
yeah,
even for a playoff game, like just with the Avalanche, how dominant they are at home, I'll take it.
You know, I asked Paul yesterday because I said, hey, Colorado did falter a little bit down the stretch. They dropped 6 of 7. 5 of those losses were in regulation. Will that downward trend continue in the playoffs? Paul said yes.
Okay. I heartily disagree. I mean, I'm not sure why Paul would think that, but he's definitely got his reasons. They have struggled with injuries at times, but I just look at Colorado as a team this year who they're almost just bored. Like that's how good they are in the Western Conference. And I think that once they got that lead too, that led to it's almost like more boredom taking over. Like we've been here. This is like the 3rd year in a row they've been in this situation. So that's my opinion. Maybe they do start off slow. I think at the very least they'll get it together and close this out in like 6 or fewer. But yeah, I'm of the opinion you'll see a different Colorado Avalanche team tonight.
What about for the late game here with the Stars and Flames? Are you feeling any kind of upset tonight?
Yeah, I think this game is going to be close. And again, much like I think this is actually the underdog I like the most. Like if you're just looking to take one underdog, I'll take the Dallas Stars here. I also really like the under as a play. The Dallas Stars can play close checking. We know the Flames are a very good team 5-on-5. They can be suffocating defensively as well. Good power play or good penalty kill. But Dallas is scrappy too. And like, they're not going to be scared of this situation. They have a good veteran second line with like Sagan and Jamie Benn going. They've got a deep defense with guys like Heiskanen, who's got some play after coming back. They're 7-2 straight up their last 9 games playing on the road in Calgary. So this Dallas Stars team they have not backed down. And a lot of those wins have come recently, like when Calgary's been good. So I also look at the under here as being a play. We've got Markstrom and net. Jake Ottinger's been very good for the Stars at times. I think the Dallas Stars come in here and really make a game of it. And I do not hate taking them on as just a money line straight up play tonight. I think they're going to give the Flames a real series. I actually don't even mind taking the Stars on the series line. I know Calgary is kind of like the darlings of everyone's eyes. And statistically, I get it. I just think that the Stars are a tough matchup for them. I think they're a scrappier team than they kind of getting credit for. They got a great first line. And if that power play starts heating up, like they're going to be a tough out. If the Stars get a lead, they are going to be very, very tough. So I think there's value in taking the Stars plus 200. Like I said, I don't mind pairing them with the Capitals. You get a couple underdogs on your card there. I like approaching the slate that way.
All right. Yeah. I mean, the under would kind of make sense when you look at Calgary's defense too, ranked top 6 in goals against, shots against, and penalty kill. They've got the 3rd best Stanley Cup odds. Meanwhile, the Stars with the longest at plus 5,000. Jeff Ulrich, that's all the time we have because we need to talk NBA with Maddie Meiselman right after this break. Thanks, dude. And happy belated birthday to Pepper.
Oh, thank you. She says thank you in her head.
All right, we are taking a break from some playoff talk. We're going to discuss a little bit of regular season Major League Baseball. This is the highest rated segment, in fact, in the Sweat's history. It has been since day one. Put up your bukes, which last week, by the way, Steve versus Garion, a tradition unlike any other, a rivalry unlike any other. After losing the second week, Steve has now battled back. And Steve has taken a 2-1 lead in this best of 7 series. This is really, really good stuff. So Garion, let's see, last week's matchup, it actually tied 2-2-1. Bukes wins the tiebreaker, which is most combined fantasy points. That's incredible. I just read that for the first time.
Oh, that's funny because I also just read that for the first time. I had never heard of these tiebreaker scenarios that we just seem to invent that favor the guy who the segment is named after. I mean, was the tiebreaker most appearances on MLB Network? I'm sorry, I lost that one. My apologies.
Yeah, no, the tiebreaker was most combined, I guess, like fantasy points with all the dudes that you guys dished out last week. This reminds me of like when I was younger, like playing games in the backyard with my sister. And if I was losing, I would just make up a rule, Steve, to make sure that would push me back ahead of my weaker sibling.
I mean, if you look at the put up your Buke segment graphic, it's all in the fine print. It's very small, but it's all there.
It's extremely small. All right, so let's get going. Let's put up your bukes for tonight, Steven. Let's go with your favorite pitcher first. Who are you looking at?
So we got a huge slate tonight. 11 games. A lot of good guys at the top. You got Rodon, you got Manoah. I'm going all the way down the list here with Bruce Zimmerman. You're probably like, who the hell is Bruce Zimmerman? I'm going to tell you just who this man is. Phenomenal start to the season. You look at his numbers here. They're fantastic across the board. And then he has a very favorable matchup against the Twins tonight. The Twins have been kind of scuffling out of the gate. They have a number of guys that can hit lefties well. But on top of that, they also have a lot of guys that will strike out a lot against lefties. The Twins come into this game with over a 21% K rate against lefties. 24% K rate against lefties. That puts them 9th in the league. This is a great spot, I think, for Zimmerman in Baltimore, where he really is so underpriced too. I mean, you look at the stats that he's had and the starts that he's made. I mean, we got double-digit fantasy points, at least 16 in 3 straight games now, 14 in that first start. And it's not like he's had an easy schedule. Brewers, Yankees twice, and the Angels, who right now are one of the best offenses in the league. 6,100 is vastly, vastly underpriced for Zimmerman. I think he's one of the best options on this slate.
All right, Gare Bear, let's go.
Yeah, I mean, look, I will say right off the bat, it is surprising Zimmerman is this cheap. I mean, we've seen DraftKings be aggressive with pitcher pricing in the past. It usually doesn't take more than a couple good starts, and it has been 4 consecutive good starts for Zimmerman. I'm a little concerned about some of his contact numbers. He's giving up a 438 expected WOBA on his batted ball events so far this season. But I will say, I also don't even understand what expected statistics mean anymore because the baseball is dead. So maybe Zimmerman is just going to be one of the guys who benefits most from that. Whatever Major League Baseball is doing right now, I don't know. I'm going to take a little less aggressive approach than Steve at pitcher and just a classic get right spot for Brandon Woodruff, who has not been pitching like Brandon Woodruff so far this season, a 5.30 ERA. That's pretty ugly. Obviously, we're not used to seeing Woodruff below 9K, but first and foremost, he's pitching better than his surface numbers suggest. He's got a 2.66 FIP. He's struck out over a batter per inning so far this season. He's yet to allow a home run. Like everything that he can control, he is controlling to the best of his abilities. He's just getting BABIP to death. He's not stranding runners. This has been bad luck. And guess what? It's all going to turn around. It's all going to normalize against the terrible Cincinnati Reds tonight. The Reds, 77 WRC plus the past 2 weeks. They can't hit. Like I said, this is just going to be one of those like, oh, Brandon Woodruff's back. He went 7 scoreless against the Reds. So it's definitely more of a mainstream pick, I'll say, but I'll go with Woodruff.
Well, the dead baseball hasn't stopped the Yankees from winning 10 straight, Garion.
That is true.
Your infielder, Steven, who are you looking at tonight?
Yeah, we're going to be going with Ryan McMahon over in Coors Field tonight, the lefty. Most importantly, going up against Eric Fetty. He really struggles against left-handed bats, so you want to always target that But then we even have the benefit of this being in Coors Field, where quite frankly, overs have gone to die since the beginning of last year. But that doesn't stop me from taking McMahon at 4,600. You look at his numbers across the board against righties. He is absolutely smashing in this type of matchup thus far this season. 407 WOBA, 255 isolated power, and a 154 WRC plus. 4,600 for somebody who's going to be hitting in the heart of the Rockies lineup tonight. I like this at 4,600. He's a great play. Any lefty against Eric Fetty tonight is really a play on the Rockies.
Yeah, Colorado's offense, let's see, last 3 games averaging 8 runs per. So offense is doing something there. Gary, what do you want, or who do you want rather, in your for your infielder?
Yeah, I think McMahon's a fantastic play, and he makes a lot of sense too. Like, he's one of the guys where the stats just completely back the things up that you want them to back up. Like, he's got a 122 WRC plus overall. He's much better against right-handed pitching, and then he's much better than that against right-handed pitching at Coors Field. Like, this is a perfect situation for McMahon. I will pivot though to Jose Abreu, who is pretty cheap for Jose Abreu. This is one of the least expensive price points I can remember seeing Abreu at. When he's going up against a left-handed pitcher. And we know Jose Abreu, much like every other person in the Chicago White Sox, was bred in a lab to destroy southpaw pitching. He's got a 157 WRC plus within the split going back to the start of last season. And he's another guy, again, expected statistics might not mean the same thing this year they did last year, but while he's struggling on the surface, his expected WOBA is over 400 at this point. At some point, Jose Abreu, who is just tearing the cover off the baseball right now, is going to see a couple fall in. So I think tonight's the night against Drew Smyly, who already is doing Drew Smyly things, even with the dead baseball. 2.3 home runs per 9 to right-handed batters so far this season. This guy loves giving up home runs, and the White Sox love hitting them against left-handed pitchers.
Dukes, take me to the outfield, please.
Yeah, we're going to be going to my guy over with the Seattle Mariners, Jesse Winker, the man who is going to take this team to the postseason. You look at his numbers overall. They're not great. That's all right. He's saving it. He's warming up. We had a short spring training. Okay. We're not worried about Winker. We're certainly not going to be worried about him tonight going up against Christian Javier. If you are going to be targeting against Javier, you are using a left-handed bat, and that's obviously exactly what Winker is. I mentioned that his numbers across the board aren't great, but 4,900 tonight in the outfield. I think this is a great spot for the Mariners overall, so this would also mean that Winker is in a good spot himself. The numbers for Javier against righties and lefties is vastly, vastly different, so this is a target you want to be using against him tonight. 4,900, Jesse Winker's the guy.
Wow, he's got me sold, Garion.
I mean, it sounds great. I love it. I'm going to go somehow $100 cheaper to Juan Soto.
Oh.
I don't understand this price. And look, Soto is a guy who, as a DFS asset, I'm always kind of at odds with, because he's such a fantastic real life hitter because of his just otherworldly pitch recognition. But walks don't really do much for you in DFS. If Juan Soto's going to walk 3 times tonight, that's not what you want if you're paying almost $5K. But this is Coors Field. So even if he only has one batted ball event, it's probably going to be a home run, because he's got a 193 WRC plus against right-handed pitching so far this season. Herman Marquez has not looked great so far in 2022. I think this is just going to be a high-scoring game, as Steve was sort of alluding to with Ryan McMahon. Yeah, I don't know what to say other than this price point is about $1,500 off. That's really just what this comes down to.
All right, Bukes, value play, brother.
Yeah, so we're going with the team that I desperately need to stop winning games. And that is the Oakland Athletics. Having them at 79.5, the under, feeling a little sweaty, and we're only at May 3rd. So they need to stop winning games. But Chad Pinder should be getting the start tonight at leadoff against the lefty. That's what they've been using him so far this season, as your leadoff hitter. Quite frankly, he's actually been hitting for some decent power for Chad Pinder, right? You look at his numbers against lefties so far, only a 219 WOBA, that's not good. Only a 46 WRC plus, that's not good, but a 231 isolated power. So for him to get the start at leadoff at the bare minimum, he's at 2K. You can't get any cheaper than that. That's like basically being free when it comes to DFS. So for him to be likely in the leadoff spot tonight against Ryan Yarbrough, who's coming off the IL, I don't expect him to be in there super long, maybe 70 to 80 pitches. So maybe we get 4 to 5 innings out of Yarbrough, unless the Athletics just knock the ball off against him. But Pinder at the bare minimum in the leadoff spot, you literally can't ask for any more than that.
All right, Gary, and I'm reading your article on DK Nation right now. I know you're not going to push back against this because he was down as your value play, but we also know that you're not boring and you don't just agree with Steve.
He's not Nick Fryer.
Can't tie.
Yeah.
Apparently, the
Ooh.
tie breaking is Steve wins, so I can't tie.
Oh, wow.
Look,
It really sounds like you're upset with Tom Glennon, our producer.
No.
No,
I
it's
am.
okay.
Never.
No, he's already
I am.
slacked me.
Never,
He
never,
is not
never.
happy with you not being happy with him.
I think there are two teams tonight that are really interesting for like just bargain basement stacking opportunities. And one is obviously the Athletics because their entire lineup is less than $3,000 aside from Sean Murphy, who also crushes left-handed pitching. But like Sheldon Noisy is going to hit second and be less than 3K. You've got like Christian Bethancourt, who can't really hit, but sometimes hits lefties well. Like there's just a lot of places to go there. I think the other team is the Tigers, and they have some more expensive bats. But like, if you're asking me to bet against Bryce Wilson, I'm always going to bet against Bryce Wilson. That dude should not be pitching in the majors right now. Going back to last season, he's got a 14% strikeout rate. He's got a FIP above 5.4. Like that's just not major league quality stuff. So I think there are many Tigers bats I like, but the one who's really cheap and hitting in the middle of that lineup with a lot of power and a lot of upside is Spencer Torkelson. It was just $2,600. And I think he started his career like 0 for 15 or something like that. But since he got his first hit on April 12th, he's got a 123 WRC plus. He's probably going to hit fifth tonight. He's just a guy who should not be this cheap considering the mass amounts of power he has and how bad Bryce Wilson is in general. So I think Torkelson's a really nice place to go to save a little money tonight.
All right, we'll get you guys out of here with this. Last time you're going to put up your bukes today, Steve. This could end up being the difference maker when it all comes down to it. If you want to take that commanding 3-1 series lead. So hook me up with your favorite bet tonight.
Yeah, if Gary and I tie in the bets, the tiebreaker is whose bet was more attractive. And I'm obviously going to win that tiebreaker. So just be prepared for that. But you look at the over-under for the Giants and Dodgers tonight with Carlos Rodon and Julio Urias. It's at 3.5. Do we really think we're going to get 4 runs for the first 5 innings with these two behemoths taking the mound tonight? Now, I know both these offenses have been humming along. You don't want to take unders when it comes to the Dodgers. But when you are facing Carlos Rodon, who is already probably one of the prime candidates for the Cy Young Award, quite frankly, could have won it last year if he wasn't injured. But thank you for that, because we got Robbie Ray at 80-1. So thank you for that. But then Urias, who's just been doing well as well. Now, there are some concerns here. The Giants hit lefties well. The Dodgers can hit lefties well. But with these two guys on the mound together, I think 3.5 runs is just asking for a little bit too much. So you can get the under here at -110. I think this is a play that you hate taking the under when the total is this low. It's going to be a little bit sweaty, but I don't see 4 runs coming out of the first 5 innings when you have these two guys on the mound this season. So take the under 3.5 runs through the first 5.
All right, where are you going, Garen?
So we've got one of those like unstoppable force versus an immovable object situations tonight in Chicago. As I mentioned, there's no one in baseball who loves giving up home runs as much as Drew Smyly loves giving up home runs. You go back to the start of 2019, he's the only active pitcher giving up more than 2 home runs per 9 innings. However, the winds at Wrigley are blowing in, which generally is a bad thing for overs. However, because I just think Drew Smyly cares that much about giving up home runs, and because that White Sox lineup is so good against left-handed pitching, it doesn't necessarily need home runs to get over the team total. I just think this number is off. 3.5 for the White Sox against a bad left-handed pitcher, -120. I think they get over that number. This is a run line or a team total that is depressed because of the weather. I don't think it should be depressed. Probably 2 full runs if this game were being played at a neutral setting. So I'm going over Chicago White Sox 3.5 runs on Tuesday night.
All right, dudes. Appreciate it. We're running tight on time, so we got to take a quick break, and we'll hit on the 2 NBA games right after this.
Nice.
Yeah, thanks, man. All right, back here for our final block of the sweat on this tasty Tuesday. Matt Meiselman, DraftKings contributor, NBA guru. We got to dive into these two games tonight, man. We got the Celtics, the Grizzlies, also the two home teams here looking to avoid falling in an 0-2 series hole to their opponents. I think a lot of people, Matty, expect the Celtics to bounce back, but will they win by a wide enough margin here? The spread now at 5. It was 4.5 earlier today.
So I promise I have something useful to say here, but to me, this is the right line. So
okay.
I don't really see this as a great bounce back spot in terms of the spread. I do think the Celtics will win. I think they're the slightly better team. What I think is important to take away from game one is that Chris Middleton being out, it's not as big of a deal as people think. And my biggest evidence for that is in the way the betting line reacted when he first got hurt. So for that subsequent game after Middleton didn't play against the Bulls, the line opened at 3, dropped to Bucks -1 because he was out, and then bounced back up to -3 even though he wasn't playing. Like he basically didn't impact the point spread. So all of that is to say that I think the Bucks are still really, really good. And the bet that I'm most interested in for this series is really whoever wins it to beat Miami. I think these are the two best teams in the Eastern Conference, even if Middleton's not playing. So I think either the Celtics or the Bucks are going to the finals. I'm really not sure who it's going to be, but I do think the Celtics win tonight.
It feels like maybe the under is the side to back too. Do you agree with that?
I don't know. I mean, it depends if there's really any scheme changes between these teams. Obviously, game one was very low scoring. I think it's hard in the playoffs with totals sometimes because especially with the way game one went, we could see the Celtics play smaller. We could see Derek White maybe get some more minutes compared to Grant Williams. That could help out with some scoring. So I don't know. It really is going to depend on adjustments. I'm really not sure there. But just from game one, yeah, I think you'd have to at least be interested in the under.
Yeah. Managing the Celtics only 89 points after averaging nearly 114 against Brooklyn, which the Celtics found out the hard way that the Bucks are not the Nets. Let's get to the late one here. So we knew Draymond Green got ejected in the game. The Warriors were able to overcome that. They were able to knock off the Grizz. Grizz had a chance, an opportunity there at the end. Do you think Curry and company walk out of Memphis with a 2-0 series lead?
I actually don't. I like the Grizzlies in this game. And I think there's been this narrative that Curry didn't play his best game. He was in foul trouble. Clay obviously didn't play his best game. Peyton was in foul trouble. Draymond didn't play the second half. And then despite Morant and Jaren Jackson having great offensive games, the Warriors still won. And therefore, people are interpreting that as, well, if things go right for the Warriors after going totally wrong, they still won. Everything went wrong. Now, if things go right, they'll just win by even more. But one, Jordan Poole is not going to put up 31, 9, and 8 every game. Like they got a huge boost from him. He played better than probably Clay would have if he were in. And then Dylan Brooks and Desmond Bane did basically nothing. So I think this game ends up being more balanced on both sides. I think that the Grizzlies defense probably plays a little better. They were just terrible in transition, specifically against Poole. But I think these teams are really even, and the Grizzlies need this game. They're at home. I think Desmond Bane will be fine to play at least. So I like them to win this game. And then just a quick thing to throw in here at the end. We have a prop on the Grizzlies to win tonight and win the series, plus 550. I don't think the series is over. I think Memphis is still certainly a good enough team to make this competitive. So if the Grizzlies are going to win the series, they're going to have to win tonight, most likely. Going down 2-0 with 2 home games would be a big hole to climb out of. So if you're going to bet them to win the series, I think you take this combination where they win tonight and they ultimately win the series. But the last point is the Suns are better than both of these teams. I think we saw that last night. Phoenix is really good, but I do still think Memphis is in it against Golden State.
Yeah, I like the Bane call there because he was just 1 for 5 from 3 the other day, but shooting 47% from deep this posting. He was 3 for 10 from the floor. He's unlikely to struggle like that again.
Oh, so, yeah, absolutely. Unless he's really hurt, which is a concern, but I don't think it's going to be as big of a deal as people think. He'll be out there. He's very, very good offensive player, and Morant may score less, but I think Bane scores a lot more, and maybe Brooks scores a lot more too.
I mean, I think it's undersold to his ability to like score, how much it opens it up for everybody else in that team. All right, so it is time to go. Thank you everyone for hanging out with us. Appreciate you, Maddie. We're back in studio tomorrow morning, 11 o'clock Eastern time. We'll see you girls and guys then. Adios.